YouTube. Yeah, I'm just sitting here in the car line thinking of a good question to ask fellow globe, well, not fellow, to ask globe believers, globe earth believers. The question is, so you're saying that gravity is what caused the apple to fall from a tree, land on the ground, and instantly Sir Isaac Newton said, there must be a force that's pulling this apple. Well, what about the other apples? Was that the only apple that he saw on the ground? Apparently, farming and agriculture was not something that he was familiar with, to understand that once the branches, once the apple is ripe, it falls from the branch because it gets too heavy, the weight of it. Apparently he didn't get that. Also, wouldn't you think that the branches would be constantly drooping down if gravity was so strong, the gravitational pull was so strong that the branches would be hanging at all times, trees would be just completely down, all the branches would be just hanging down so low, being pulled. And then that tension would probably split the trees in half. The other thing is centrifugal force. Okay, they talk about centrifugal force. And they say that the reason that gravity is not as strong at the equator or is weaker at the equator is because due to the centrifugal force of the spin of the earth as it's rotating. So if that were true and the centrifugal force was that powerful to make gravity weak, these people would be torn to shreds. They would not be able to obtain a distance. They would be smushed to the ground, as the riders who ride in the Gravitron carnival rides are smushed to the wall. They would not be able to move whatsoever, would be dead. But yet here we are, and they're talking about, okay, so gravity is what keeps everything down. Oh, well, except for helium balloons and insects and dust and things like that, because it's really weak, even though it is said to be the force that holds the universe, the galaxy together, that holds the entire galaxy. And if the gravitational constant is all the mass in I'm not even going to say the universe, I'm going to say on Earth. If all of the Earth's mass collectively combined, is equal to the gravitational constant, how in the world can anything smaller than oceans, seas, mountains, trees survive? There will be no way to even survive. Okay, and so after that video was taken, I then started to search up different websites about why do apples fall from trees. Of course, lo and behold, everything dealing with science or scientific websites, they would have gravity as the root cause of why apples fall to the ground. But if you go to a gardening website about why apples fall to the ground, everything from lack of moisture, sometimes just very heavy fruit that falls as part of a natural pruning cycle to prevent the branches from breaking off. They fall to the ground because of that. Just the common sense reasons of why an apple would fall to the ground. Nowhere did I find anything about gravity. It says some trees will naturally thin themselves by dropping excess fruit prematurely. Often a period of stress, such as a long hot summer with very little rain, will cause a tree to abort its fruit in order to conserve energy. Apple trees require deep watering during drought. So it might have been lack of water, lack of nitrogen, just lack of nutrients. It's nature's way of preserving the rest of the fruit. That sounds too reasonable. You mean that gravity did not do it? The tree itself did it? Oh, well, I got a force such as, gravity caused this to happen. And so you see, it's very common sense as to why this occurs. It says that it isn't necessarily bad if a few apples drop early. It's called early fruit drop. And it says it's just Mother Nature's way of reducing a heavy fruit set. This isn't necessarily bad at all. It says it is recommended that you thin apples to 1 per cluster so that each apple is 4 to 6 inches from the next. And thinning in this manner prevents limb breakage from overly heavy fruit set and allows the tree to produce the largest, healthiest fruit. Simple. You see how that works? That is nature. But when they say, oh, gravity is pulling it down, it's being attracted to gravity, or it's being attracted to the ground, that's why it's happening. I mean, so is that for everything that falls? When people fall, are they being attracted to the ground, or did they just have an accident? Did their legs give away from underneath them? It's like everything that falls. So now everything that falls, accidentally or not, it's because gravity is pulling it down. Well, you would think that gravity would constantly be weighing on us for us to not even be able to move from one point to the other. And I mean, it's just so ridiculous. The more I think about it, it's like, okay, you say gravity is the answer to everything, and yet a helium balloon, something that just goes in the opposite direction, what are we supposed to believe? That anti-gravity is working now? It's just really ridiculous. Which also means that clearly he did not know about density and buoyancy. Right? Density and buoyancy. I mean, if the object is heavier than the air, then it will drop down because the weight of the object, the weight of it, it's more dense. It's heavier than the air around it. In like manner, the reason that things float up like a helium balloon is because the helium is lighter than the air, buoyant. Okay, it floats up. It floats. And for example, if you went to the Dead Sea, the water is so dense because of all the salt that everything pretty much floats there. No matter how big a person is, they can float above it because the water is very, very dense, is very buoyant. The buoyancy is very high because of the salt. Okay, it causes the surface tension to be a lot higher and denser than other bodies of water. So just trying to understand how weight works. In the heliocentric model, they'll tell us that, well, the only reason that things have a weight or a mass is because of gravity. But then we're told at the equator, gravity is a lot less. It's not as needed because of the centrifugal force that is at the equator. So my question is, do these people, are these people either uh, sort of almost floating because they don't have as much weight because of the lack of gravity, or is so much less there. And how are they able to move if the centrifugal force has taken over? If gravity is supposed to keep them down and give them weight, so them being lighter, I guess, and then not being able to stay to the ground because of the lack of gravity, or the diminished amount of gravity there, that the centrifugal force, it should just it should just whisk them away, or just have them planted on the ground. I don't even know how that would work. It's just craziness. It doesn't make sense. It's ridiculous is what it is. So to ask, oh, well, why did that apple fall the way it did? Why did it fall down like it was falling towards the center of the earth or something? Rather than just using common sense and saying, well, maybe it was just time for the apple to fall because it was ripe, or for the pruning purposes, the natural processes that, that the earth, that God has already supplied for that tree, for that plant, that's occurring. Or it could be other reasons that are in nature, naturally explained. But yeah, that will conclude this video. It's just food for thought, once again, and asking the questions that are so blatantly obvious, I guess. It's just one of the things that we have been taught, indoctrinated into believing, that gravity is the cause of anything falling to the ground. But when you redirect the question and ask, well, why do things float up? It's just like, oh, okay, well, then gravity is just no longer a strong force anymore. It's just something that is circumstance and happenstance. So just look into it and research it for yourself and draw your own conclusions. But at the end of the day, we have to use God's common sense that He has given us. Well, until the next time, I hope you be blessed. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. I appreciate it. Take care.